Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough. Today, I'm so thrilled to be speaking to Dr. Beth McDougall. I've been following her work for a few years now, and I'm really excited to speak with her. Dr. Beth has been practicing medicine for 25 years, and she's a leader in the fields of advanced medical technology and healing practices. Thank you so much, Dr. Beth, for joining me. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to speak to you. If you can't tell from me stumbling over my words.
Oh my gosh. Well, my pleasure, Robert.
The first thing I'd like to talk to you about is actually your book. I devoured it. I loved everything about it. I actually started my mornings reading a chapter every morning for a while, and that I found to be just the best way to kick off my day. Such great energy in that book. It's called Your Pristine Blueprint: The Missing Key to Longevity, Reversing Disease, and Radically Transforming Your Life. Um, so I would like to just start by asking you, what is your pristine blueprint, the topic of the book, and how does it relate to health and healing, and why is it so important?
Yeah. Well, so this was an idea that really evolved over decades for me. But when you look at the human body, it's so incredibly complex. We have 37 trillion cells with millions of chemical reactions happening every second, and then this is all coordinated. It's all in a coordinated manner, and you just look at cellular biology and just the intricacies of all the biochemical pathways in there and everything that's happening. It's like our current science really cannot explain what is coordinating all of that. It's like we don't have, like, even with our most sophisticated quantum computing, we don't have anything that could even come close to coordinating that level of complexity. And then you think about how we're growing and developing as an embryo and evolving into this being that's us. And so there has to be an overarching orchestration of all of this. And so this concept of a blueprint or a three-dimensional field of information that is coordinating things evolved over time, as I mentioned. And I really now have come to understand that at the moment of our conception, there is a blueprint or field of information that forms, that becomes not only the template along which we kind of unfold and develop as an embryo, but then the operating instructions for our complex physiology as we go through life. And this is our pristine blueprint. And there are many factors that influence this, the development of this, and make it unique to us. Of course, it's influenced by our unique genetics, but also it is influenced by astrological kind of intricacies at the moment of our conception, and then later at the moment of our birth. And I believe it's influenced by the imprint of our soul, and all the past lives that we've lived, and all the cultural contexts we've found ourselves in, all of our experiences and kind of lessons and things that we've learned. And then it's also got the kind of imprint of our familial lines going in both directions, or matrilineal line or patrilineal line, and just things that have happened to our ancestors that have created epigenetic changes, of course, but also just kind of still reverberate in our being. And so these various types of factors influence the development of this blueprint and make it unique to us.
So to quote something from your book, one line says, "There's always an opportunity to restore our health by restoring our resonance with our pristine blueprint." So what is it that we can do to restore that resonance and ensure that we optimize our longevity and our health? And what are some of the things that are typical to our lifestyles today that take away from that?
Okay, those are excellent questions, and I want to answer those, but with a little bit of a prelude. First, we also need to consider the fact that we are part of a field of energy and information. We exist within this field of energy and information, and all of our material reality is actually emanating from this field. And if you think about all of creation, we are actually connected through this field of information. Not only are we living within it, but it lives within us, and each of us emerge as a unique expression from this field. And so how is that possible? It's because of this blueprint that forms and kind of imprints in the field and then dictates the formation of us. And there is this bi-directional communication that begins to happen between the blueprint and our physical form. And so it's like the blueprint is informing our physicality and physiology, but then our bodies are informing the blueprint. And there's this bi-directional communication as we go through life. And this seamless communication really allows for the proper operating instructions to operate our physiology. But as we go through life, we can collect information signatures that are dissonant and can throw off that communication almost like static on a radio. So everything that we encounter in life has its own blueprint and its own information signature. For example, like, the heavy metal mercury has its own information signature. Like certain types of bacteria that would be considered pathogens have their own information signature. And certain information signatures as we go through life are very compatible with our bodies and blueprint, and others create dissonance and almost like static in the system. And if you think about information signatures from traumatic experiences, those can create even larger dissonance in the system, because you have not only kind of the experience itself and the memories around that, but the reverberation of emotions that we maybe weren't fully equipped to deal with at the time that this trauma occurred, and that are kind of stored in the system. So as we go through life and we experience traumas and we develop infections and we encounter toxins and things like that, we can collect more and more misinformation that can disrupt seamless communication with our blueprint. It's almost like static on the radio. So every choice we make in life ends up really determining either enhancing communication with the blueprint or disrupting it. And so that involves everything from the food we eat to the water that we drink. Is it purified, or does it itself have fluoride and chlorine and pesticide, residues, and even information signatures from those things? Or, are we eating organic food, or are we eating food that's contaminated with glyphosate and different herbicides and pesticides? Are we eating fresh vital food, or that's full of a life force energy, and has a resonant blueprint itself? Or are we eating devitalized, packaged food with damaged fats in it and chemical additives and preservatives and things like that? And then as we go through life, are we delving into our biography that we have stored in our personal kind of energetic anatomy and working to clear information signatures that are retained within our field that are creating dissonance? Or are we just ignoring that and self-medicating to avoid having to kind of tune in to kind of unrest within us? So every decision we make in life is either going to enhance resonance with our blueprint or detract from it.
So there's a lot there to unpack for sure. You spoke about nutrition and the things that we put into our body. So in a physical sense, the things that we're ingesting, but also it's also, there's also a line in your book that says most illness begins on an energetic level and true healing begins on a soul level, which I think there's a connection. And Can you expand on that a little bit? I want to touch on the nutrition and the water. There's a whole chapter on water in your book, but I'm curious to know about this idea of healing happening from the soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's go back to the idea of a trauma, for example. So, maybe, pretty much everyone has had traumatic things happen to them, as they're growing up or, going through life. And most often, if that happens at an early age, we're not fully equipped to deal with that. We don't have the ability, the psychic ability to kind of like recognize what happened. We don't have the perspective to even understand that, it may be wrong or not normal for it to have happened. We may have generated emotions because of what happened, but not fully understood them or acknowledged them, or could even really feel them. And so this all can get stored in our energetic anatomy. And our energetic anatomy, is complex, but we have a chakra system. We have an auric field, and the auric field is also called the human biofield. We can store this information in our energetic anatomy, and it can almost be like concretized energy that is no longer at our disposal. And then the energetics in stored energy, let's say in a chakra system, let's go to, let's say, the first chakra. Our first chakra is our root chakra, kind of located around the area of our perineum. It is what grounds us to the earth. It gives us a sense of security, and it gives us a sense of kind of like rightness of being able to kind of ground our spiritual energy into our physical form and really own this incarnation. Okay, so what if our survival was threatened as a child? What if we were physically abused, or our survival needs were neglected or something like that, and our survival was actually in jeopardy? Maybe we were abused, and then maybe someone was given up for, into foster care or something like that. And then maybe in a situation that wasn't wholesome there either, and, all their needs weren't being met. So if you, just as a hypothetical example, well, that person is probably going to store a lot of energy in their first chakra around all of those traumatic experiences that are going to disrupt their ability to fully inhabit their physical form. It will disrupt their ability to ground fully into their physical body. And so what happens if they're unable to ground fully into their physical body? Well, there's a vacuum, so to speak, that's there. And people will often have, in life, maybe a hard time finding a solid home, a hard time finding like a healthy relationship that feels nurturing. They may end up on a physical level developing a lot of infections, parasitic type infections in the body, because there's a vacuum created. They're not home to occupy their space, so something else will fill that space. Okay, so there's that example. Let's say someone had more second chakra type trauma. Maybe the second chakra is associated with, the sexual organs, creative expression, and on a physical level, it's associated with the ovaries in the female, and the testicles in the male. And so let's say someone had some sexual trauma growing up. They may end up developing a kind of a health problem related to their sexual organs. Women might have really painful menstrual cycles. They may have endometriosis. They may develop uterine fibroids, or just kind of menstrual irregularity. Perhaps they'll develop infertility. A man might develop erectile dysfunction, or might develop like a enlarged prostate or chronic prostatitis or something like that. These are the types of things that where stored energy in the body, where energy is not flowing freely as it should, kind of leads to stagnation on a more physical level, and then the development of a physical disease process in that area of the body. The examples are endless. If someone has trauma, let's say more in the fifth chakra area, where they are growing up and they're not allowed to really speak their truth about things. They're not allowed to express themselves adequately. There's someone always kind of inhibiting that, or kind of discrediting their thought, their voice. Maybe later they'll develop a thyroid problem, because this chakra is associated from an endocrine perspective with the thyroid gland. So basically, each energetic chakra is associated with an autonomic nerve plexus and an endocrine gland. And so I think about the chakras as these kind of step up and step down transformers of energy, where they are able, when they're healthy, to kind of translate more subtle energy from the environment into the chemical language of our endocrine system and the electrical and sonic language of our nervous system. And so very much, the healthy functioning of these energetic systems are very much going to influence the health of our bodies. And stored energy is going to interfere with that.
So I know that you specialize in degenerative diseases, and I imagine that this plays a large role in your treatment of patients. How do you go about diagnosing people's past traumas that might be influencing their energy in a negative way, and how do you unravel that once you find out what the source of the issue is?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I can necessarily do for someone else.
Okay.
That is that a person has to do on their own. But what I may be able to do is shed light on it, the need to do the work. So for example, usually when someone comes to see me, I'm kind of looking at their health on multiple levels, looking at it on a physical level, what's happening physically. Is there, a way for us to kind of unwind things on a physical level, utilizing, natural supplements, bioidentical hormones, let's say, if necessary, treatment of infections, if necessary, clearing of toxins, if they're there. And then if I sense that there is an energetic underpinning, which almost always there is, and how do I sense that? I sense that just kind of from the fact that the physical issue exists, but also because, someone will have like a mindset around their personal health problem, that it almost is like, kind of indicative of the stuck energy in that area. So sometimes that's an entree in where I can kind of like, in conversation with someone, point it out and make suggestions that maybe, let's say, if it is the fifth chakra, that they haven't been able to fully own their personal voice and speak their truth, and maybe it's manifesting not only in their health but in their lives, in their relationships, and their happiness at their job, let's say, and then I can kind of like begin to direct people to doing some personal practices to access that information in meditation, and learn how to discern what's there that is not truly theirs, and could be what they can learn from that and how they can let that go. And there's a lot of resources I can give people if they need help with that. Refer them to training programs to help them learn how to access their energetic anatomy, like the Academy of Intuition Medicine in Sausalito, around where I live here in practice, is a powerful program. They also have online programs, so that can be really helpful for people. And individual healers I can set them up with, and then just do training on my own with people, just so kind of help them tune into it on their own in meditation.
I'd like to ask you what you think about the placebo effect. It's something that everybody knows about. It's commonly acknowledged as a phenomenon. People can essentially heal themselves if they believe that they're getting the medicine that they need. And in modern medicine, I feel that it's kind of written off almost as an inconvenience, isn't it? Like it gets in the way of medical trials, and we want to rule out the placebo effect, but it's never, to my knowledge, been properly studied or leveraged as a legitimate healing technique, even though clearly there's some power there. What do you think about that and the way that modern medicine has kind of pushed it aside and disregarded it?
I think it's a terrible shame because I think it's probably one of the most powerful aspects of interacting with someone. When someone comes in to see me, it's just holding space for them and really seeing them is probably the majority of the healing interaction right there. Just recognizing them, hearing what they have to say, kind of shedding light, whether I'm vocalizing that or just doing it just in my own mind, kind of shedding light on their situation and kind of like almost like intuition to intuition, or kind of super conscious to super conscious, communicating with them and letting them know that they can take care of this by taking a look at it and understanding that there is an energetic underpinning. I think like that there's a lot of communicating that's happening, just from like a super conscious level with somebody. That's probably, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but 80%, 90% of the healing interaction. The other thing is when I'm with somebody, I find love for them, in a very big way. Like it's like, no matter, I find love and compassion for them, and that kind of holding them in a heart vibration just seems to have a healing effect. Like, how do you measure that? So then, maybe I'm recommending some supplements or something, or some physical substances that they're taking. But who's to say that that's what's really doing the healing? I think it's a very small part of the healing process. And so if we really recognized the power of and then one of the other things I'm doing when I'm speaking with someone is like kind of really letting them know it's possible to heal from this. We can, this is absolutely possible to unwind this. I see this happening for you. And so then I kind of entrain them with the belief that this is possible. Like, you're absolutely not going to heal unless you believe that it's possible to heal. So you're coming to me. I've been doing this for 25 years. I have a huge track record of helping people. And so I'm coming from a very confident place. And probably, I think without training in it formally, I do a lot of neuro-linguistic programming when I'm meeting with someone, of just like iterating and reiterating several times throughout the experience with somebody, like, this can turn around, like, you can do this. This is possible to heal. I'm so excited for you. We're going to see some great changes here. This is going to be really cool when we get back together and we look at your labs next time, or, we get to hear how you're feeling, because you're going to see a huge change. It's going to be very different for you. You're going to feel so much better. Like, I say that like throughout the entire appointment. And so they leave so much hope, but like this newfound belief, like, because it's true. It's not like I'm lying, it's true. And so they feel that, and they feel the conviction in me that that's true. And so I think that's probably the most important thing right there.
I agree. And I think that's missing from a lot of medical settings and clinical settings. It tends to have a cold and detached feeling, where I think that's the opposite of what most people need when they're ill, basically. Um, Could you talk to me about biooptimization? I know you have a center called JYZEN where you focus on biooptimization. What can you tell me about that? What are some of the advancements that you're making and things that you're offering through JYZEN?
Ah, well, again, I'm going to back up a bit and just say that, in the course of my career, I was really always trying to figure out these deeper underpinnings with people's health. And so I began at a certain point studying physics a lot because in quantum physics, and that really flushed out this kind of understanding that I have today about the blueprint and our relationship to the field at large, which is, infinitely dense with energy and information. And so it's like, I really started looking at ways for us to interact more meaningfully and efficiently with the field. And so then that kind of led me to study energetic therapies. We are derived from this field of energy and information. So let's let the components of the field be our medicine, like electrons and photons and information signatures and phonons. And so how do we kind of develop therapies and how do we utilize therapies that are based on these kind of fundamental principles? And so I was a real early adopter of some of the therapies that have become popular today, like red light and near infrared light therapies. I've had a Novathor bed in my practice for a very long time, and now at JYZEN we have three of them. And what it is it's a bed that you can get into that has light in the red and the near infrared light wavelengths, and those particular wavelengths of light very much affect changes in our bodies, like particularly in the mitochondria. So like inside of our cells, we have little energy factories called the mitochondria, and the mitochondria take glucose from our food and oxygen from breathing and run them through a series of chemical steps to produce ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. And there's a series of enzymes in those chemical steps, and one of them can get blocked through, in various types of health problems. And then it will not produce energy as well because this kind of like chain of chemical steps gets blocked. And the red light, near infrared light wavelengths will liberate that enzyme and kind of allow it to function more efficiently again. So that is absolutely vital for cellular health and is kind of like a really important upregulating mitochondrial function and energy production within the cell is really an important underpinning to help both reverse many disease processes, almost all diseases that we see, as well as reduce the rate of aging and even reverse biological aging in a lot of cases. So red light, near infrared light bed. And then I got very much into kind of electron therapies like pulsed electromagnetic field therapies. This is like our cell membranes are like batteries, and the charge of the battery very much dictates the health of the cell. And our cell membranes are largely charged by electrons. And we used to spend a lot more time outdoors than we do today. And I highly advocate spending time outdoors. I think it's absolutely vital for our health. But we used to walk barefoot on the earth and sleep on the ground, and we're no longer doing those things. And when we would do those things, and when we do those things even today, we're absorbing electrons into our system through our skin. And so the pulsed electromagnetic field therapy devices are like spending time on the earth, but on steroids. It's like grounding, earthing on steroids, and you're really pulling the electrons into the system to charge the batteries of our cell membranes. And then, like I was saying earlier, every single thing has an information signature. That is literally what makes the thing the thing. It is that signature and the blueprint that actually allows that thing to precipitate from this field of energy and information that it is part of. And so you can treat a body with particular physical substances, and you can have the same effect treating the body with just the information signature of the substance. So we do a lot of work with that here. So we do resonance biofeedback therapy, where we can actually measure aberrant signatures in someone's system, signatures related to, let's say, a toxin or a pathogen or a diseased cell type or, a diseased organ. And then we can send back corrective signatures to help balance out the physiology. So we can send corrective signatures through different types of modalities, like through scalar, through plasma, through ultrasound, through electrodes. So there's different ways to communicate, and through pulsed electromagnetic fields. So different ways to communicate these beneficial corrective information signatures back to the body. So we do it in various ways here. And JYZEN is just full. It's like this huge suite of different energetic technologies. So the red light beds, we've got infrared ozone saunas with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy and frequency delivery. And then we have a lot of therapies here that are really geared toward enhancing how our bodies utilize oxygen for energy production. And so we have intermittent hypoxic training, we have altitude training, and we do a lot of biometric testing on people, and then institute kind of programs that involving these therapies, as well as lifestyle changes, and even, kind of more supplemental type, nutritional supplements, particular diets, intravenous treatments and things. And then we kind of circle back to the biometric testing just to see how people are doing.
Let's dig into the nutritional aspect a little bit more. We kind of touched on it a little bit before, and there are chapters in your book. There's actually an entire chapter dedicated to water, which I found endlessly fascinating. And speaking about energy signatures, I had no idea that water was able to retain signatures of different things and that it could be structured differently. Can you talk to me about that? I'm super fascinated about water and the different properties that it can have, and the typical water that we're drinking every day. It's recommended to drink a lot of water every day. Most health experts agree on that, but what kind of difference does it make to have water that is, structured in a particular way, or different from just what you would get out of your tap?
Yeah, okay. Well, water is one of my most favorite topics, and it is something that can exist in various forms, as we all know. Water can exist as a solid ice, liquid, or a vapor, steam. But it's been discovered by a couple different scientists that are now, speaking quite a bit about this, that water has another state that is like a gel. And this is a highly structured type of water, and it's the primary way that water exists within the human body. So, free-flowing liquid water is H2O. In the body, water molecules will kind of line up along different surfaces, like the outside of your cell membranes, the inside of your cell membranes, the outside of your intracellular organelles, the inside of your intracellular organelles. And it will line up in a very structured way where water no longer actually becomes H2O anymore. It becomes H3O2. So it looks like the water molecules are like sheets of honeycomb shape, where the oxygen is sharing hydrogens with neighboring oxygens, and it's arranging itself in like honeycomb sheets, and then stacks of these honeycomb sheets on top of one another. And this highly structured zone actually has some really miraculous properties, where it excludes other molecules, and it actually separates charge. So it ends up acting a lot like a battery. So the structured zone H3O2 is negatively charged, and the extra hydrogen is shunted outside of that structured zone and lines up in a zone of positive charge. And that charge separation acts like a battery. And we're finding out that that fuels a lot of what goes on in the body. So that that energy is fueling many things, because we're learning that the water will structure also around proteins, for example. So proteins often, have various configurations. Maybe they're in a ball at certain points, and then if they're needed to perform a certain action, they have to kind of unfurl a little bit to expose certain aspects of their chemistry so that that part is active to do something. And the water will actually line up around, kind of like around the ball in sheaths, and then will provide the energy when required for that unfurling process. We're also learning that water will structure around our helical DNA in spiral sheaths. And water is very much able to influence what parts of our DNA is being expressed or not. So is it kind of quiet, or is it opening up so that those genes can be transcribed, into RNA and then translated into proteins. So we're learning that, for one, water primarily exists in the structured state in the body and very much provides the energy for work to be done, and also can influence the expression of our genes and our proteins and things like that. And the other cool thing is that water is everywhere in the body. There is pretty much nowhere where water isn't, because we have water fully inside our cells, inside the intracellular organelles. It's in our bloodstream, it's in our lymphatics, it's in our cerebral spinal fluid, and it's in our tissues. And we, really, it's like we are fully water. And if you look at, people have always said, oh, you're 60% water by weight, which is true, but you are 99% water by number of molecules, because water is everywhere. It's literally so tiny. It's intercalating in between, all the different types of molecules and filling up all space that there is in the body. And it is mostly in this kind of solid gel-like form. Like, we used to think of cells like water balloons. Like, if you were to pop it, all the contents would just leak right out, but that's not what happens, actually. So you can rip a swath off the cell membrane and the jello-like internal structures stay fairly intact. So we're this kind of highly organized liquid crystal, actually. And we're also learning that water has special properties of being able to store information. And, we've learned that throughout many, many years that is possible, but there's been some phenomenal research around this, by Luc Montagnier and other people that have really established with beyond a shadow of a doubt that water will hold information that can later actually influence effects. And so, you've probably heard about making a homeopathic remedy where you take a little bit of a substance and you put it in water, and then you shake that up, and then you take a little bit of that, you put that in another kind of pure water, and you shake that up, and you kind of dilute it down till there's no more molecules of the substance left, but yet the information signature of the substance is imprinted in the water and can still have an effect. Let's say in a human being, if they take that water. So we know water holds information as well. And when we think about this highly organized kind of water liquid crystal that we are, we start to also understand how important water is as an interface between our physiology and our blueprint and the field at large. So the more coherent and structured the water is in our body, the better able it is to act like an amplifying conduit of the energy and information in the field to our body. So it enhances that communication. So water is absolutely vital. So you are asking, like, why, is it important to drink like pure water? Is it important to drink structured water? Well, yes. So pure water is absolutely vital, because much of our municipal water supply, for example, still has a lot of contamination in it. It's got things added to it as well. So you've got the chlorine and the fluoride and the chloramine. These things are not necessarily beneficial to the system. They can create dissonant signatures in our bodies. Some of our municipal water supply has chemical residues, from pharmaceutical agents that were urinated out by women on birth control pills, or people taking pharmaceuticals. Well, those agents are still not fully purified out of the water in all cases. And if they are, what about the information signatures that those things imprinted into the water? How is that going to affect us? So yes, the more highly purified water that you can drink, the better. And then the question is, should you drink structured water? Yes or no? Like, is it going to stay structured once you've imbibed it, in the body, and it goes through your stomach acid and gets absorbed? That's really hard to know. But what does happen is that it takes energy to structure water. So for example, in the body, we pick up infrared energy from the earth and from the rays of the sun. And that infrared energy is what the body utilizes to structure the water. If you drink water that is not structured, your body has to come up with the energy in order to structure it once it comes in. If you drink water that has been structured, and water can be structured in a whole variety of ways. So infrared energy is one way, but kinetic energy is another. So, you think about water that is kind of percolating up through different strata of the earth and kind of like coming out of a mountain spring. That water is structured. It's been kind of moved through, different rock formations, and it's caused those molecules to like kind of twist and turn and eddy as it's kind of percolating up. And it's also been informed by the geomagnetic field of the earth and the signatures of the different kind of strata of the earth and the mineral content of the earth as it's moved up through to the mountain stream. So like that is probably the best kind of water that we would want to be drinking if we could, but very few of us can do that anymore. And so, how do we create water that's as close to this pristine natural water that we should be drinking as possible? There are a lot of people attempting to kind of recapitulate that, or kind of, create water that's as close to that as possible. And it usually requires like multi-stages in order to accomplish something that's even approximating it.
I want to pull another quote from your book. Actually, this is a quote by Einstein. "We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them." I love that quote, and I was wondering if you could give me some examples of problems that you've noticed are generally trying to be solved from the same level of thinking that created them, and if you have any possible alternatives that might be more effective.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say one example is just that, we've, kind of like grown up, at this stage, all of the humans today, in this kind of worldview of that's very disconnected. We kind of don't understand the interconnectedness of all things. And so, humans are viewed as separate from nature. And even within the human body, the individual systems like cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the gastrointestinal system, the endocrine system, they're all kind of viewed in isolation. You know, you go to one specialist for this and another specialist for that. And, you know, everyone's in their own little silo, kind of manipulating their own little system, not really paying attention to how they all interrelate. And, you know, and so I've personally feel like, you know, if you're looking at personal health challenges, because I'm a doctor, you're not going to solve complex health problems with this kind of isolated, disconnected thinking. You're really needing to think holistically, at least in the body, of like, you know, these systems are all part of one thing, and you affect any one of them, you're going to have ramifications in the others. But then you need to take it up another notch from there. Like, okay, so we are a physical body, but we're also a mind and we're a soul. And, you know, so there's that kind of, you know, mind, body, spirit type of holism thinking that I think absolutely needs to be adopted in order to unravel certain types of health challenges. But then we really need to take it up a notch from there, which is we're looking at, we are inseparable from this field of energy and information that we are derived from, and therefore inseparable from all aspects of creation. You know, we're absolutely tied, quantum entanglement and in many other ways, to the human being that's suffering over in another country, you know, because they don't have enough to eat. We're absolutely affected by the abuses of the earth. We're, you know, you know, the way we're abusing the earth, and by the kind of destruction of different ecosystems. It's like, you know, we need to be thinking so differently in order to truly solve our health challenges. And then not even that, we need to be thinking about like, okay, what's the Earth's relationship to other aspects of our solar system? Like, you know, what's the Earth's relationship to the sun, for example? Like, we are now learning so much about how the cycles of activity of the sun are affecting the earth, you know, like solar flares and solar kind of coronal mass ejections and emissions, you know, create perturbations in the weather patterns on the earth, are, I would say, solely responsible for volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, storms, cyclones, hurricanes. Like, all of these things are absolutely directly related to what's going on the sun. You know, so there's no end to the holistic thinking that we really need to have in order to solve the problems that we're faced with. And the cool thing is that there are more and more people that are thinking differently and coming up with solutions to not only our health problems, but to all of the problems that we face, from agriculture and how do we make enough food to feed our population, to energy generation, and how do we derive energy in a way that is truly clean and sustainable and is beneficial for us and for the planet. And how communication systems, how do we truly communicate and send information without 5G, without Wi-Fi, and these things that have dissonant effects on biology and you know, the earth in general. You know, mineral extraction, you name it, like whether it's transportation or building or yeah, or agriculture or whatever, you know, there are new solutions coming out of new thinking in physics, and that's really grounded in this understanding that we are part of and derive from this field of energy and information that is infinitely rich in energy, and our new technologies of the future are going to be geared toward interacting with that field in a meaningful way and extracting energy from the field. And that's going to affect what we do for health and all of the other things I just mentioned.
I'm familiar with the work of Nassim Haramein and the Resonance Science Foundation, and I'm curious to know what you find to be the most exciting technologies that are on the horizon that we might be seeing over the next few years, and the positive impacts that they may have on the Earth and on all of humanity.
Well, so many, it'd be hard to narrow it down, but for one, what Nassim is, the new math that he's written and the papers that are soon to be published, he has shown that electricity and gravity and magnetism, um, are all one thing. They're different manifestations of the same thing. Weak force, strong force, electricity, magnetism, gravity, they're all just like different manifestations of the same thing. And he's written the math that describes the relationships of electricity to gravity, etc. And so very soon technologies will be developed that allow us to overcome gravity, so like electrogravitic type technology that will allow us to, it's going to change everything about how we move about the earth, for example, how change our transportation, how we move heavy objects. It'll allow us to leave the planet and visit other planets. So that extends out, kind of our ability to get natural resources. And so that's going to be coming probably within the next 5-10 years. It's also, becoming very apparent in the mathematics how much energy is actually available to us. And so the technologies that will be developed will be able to learn how to extract the energy from the field. So that, I think, energy generation is going to be something that's going to change radically in the next decade. And probably that's what excites me most, because we've had this scarcity consciousness mode going on, and really we have an unlimited supply of energy, and that's going to be available to everyone. It's just going to change how we grow things and how we do things. And then I think that when we understand the human physiology and its relationship to the field of energy better, we're going to be able to develop more and more technologies that allow for exchange of energy from the field into the physiology. So we'll amplify the exchange of energy into the physiology. So a lot of issues result from kind of physiology breakdown from not having the appropriate energy. Maybe the dissonance is causing a disruption in the flow of energy right there, those dissonance signatures I was talking about. But if we can, we might be able to transmute those dissonance signatures, kind of restore the proper information and the flow of the proper energy in order to heal the physiology. So I think we're going to see that, one day illness is no longer necessary.
Yeah, that ties into the next thing that I want to ask you was about the future of healthcare in general. What are your hopes and predictions for, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years of our healthcare systems?
I definitely see for the future that we will be able to resolve all health challenges. I think that we also can, as a culture, evolve consciously so that we come to understand that we need to do the deeper work to kind of excavate and transmute or ground off the kind of the dissonant signatures left in our energetic anatomy from our experiences in life. And so I think that, we'll have a culture that will value doing that deep type of work. And then we'll have lifestyle practices because we're going to understand the interconnectedness of all things. We're not going to condone the polluting of the environment or the destruction of ecosystems and things like that. So it's going to be a lot easier to go through life without collecting dissonance from, bad food, contaminated water, contaminated air, etc.
I don't want to keep you much longer, but I just wanted to ask before I let you go, is there anything important that we haven't gotten a chance to speak about that you'd like to bring up?
There's a lot to speak about, but covered a lot. We covered a lot.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to try to blitz through, most of the I guess things that struck me the most about your book, and there was so much, so it's very hard. I have additional notes and things, but I guess one thing, I'll just ask you one final question, and it kind of, I think, ties everything all together. There's another line from your book that says, "If you want to know the secrets of the universe, study the human body." I think that's a great thing to end on. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and just, tie up all the concepts that we've spoken about into what that really means?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great way to end. That was actually something that was told to me when I was probably about 13 years old by a childhood mentor that I had. And basically it was saying that human beings are part of nature and part of the universe, and the universe from the quantum scale all the way up to the astrological scale is fractal. So there's the same patterns and ratios repeat at the very smallest scale to the very largest scale. And so if you really delve into human physiology and you really delve into cellular biology, you delve into biochemistry, and you start to really see these patterns. You understand the sacred geometry that's embedded within the human form, and even manifesting in the shape of the atoms and the molecules themselves. And so you can basically learn everything from studying one thing deeply, because it's all one thing. So whether you're a quantum physicist just studying kind of like the arrangement of Planck's in the Planck field of the quantum vacuum, or you're looking at the arrangement of the planets and in our solar system or the universe or beyond, you're going to really get it all. It's just how deeply you go into it with if you can go into it with reverence and with a sense of awe, the secrets are revealed. Everything you need to understand about the universe is in there.
That's a great message. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for speaking with me today. I'm still astounded that I'm actually getting to speak to you after following you for several years now. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can speak again in the future.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for being moved by the book, and it's been a pleasure, really.